Hey everybody, Shawn here. Welcome to my studio. I've got a compressor pedal to show you today. It's made by Pettyjohn Electronics and it's called the Crush. It's a very high-end studio grade compressor in a box, and the reason I say that is because it uses a discrete VCA circuit, which is more commonly found in top shelf studio compressors. And also another thing that makes it unique is it's using what's called RMS sensing as opposed to peak sensing for its actual compression. So RMS is more of an average that it's basically compressing or sensing, whereas peak sensing, you're literally compressing the peaks. So it tends to, overall it's going to be a smoother sounding compressor and more transparent, and it's not going to have that weird kind of pulsing thing that a lot of peak sensing, especially stomp box compressors, will have. So let's real quick just go through the actual controls on the box. So we'll go top left first is your level control, and that's for basically gain compensation for the VCA. As you start adding more compression, obviously the level of the box could drop or actually go up depending on how you're dialing it. So you're going to use a level control to compensate that for unity or higher or lower depending on what you're wanting. The top right control is the compression control, and basically that's setting the threshold. So in other words, at what threshold is the box going to start actually compressing the signal. As you roll it to the right, it's going to compress sooner. As you roll it to the left, it's going to compress later. It's going to let more signal through. The bottom left control is called the tilt EQ, and that's a really nice circuit that Pettyjohn's really great at. As you roll it to the left, it's going to basically have more low end and less top end. As you roll it to the right, you're going to get more sparkly highs and less low end. It's very musical. Now the last last potentiometer control is the clean mix. So when that guy's rolled all the way to the left, you're hearing just the compressor circuit. As you start rolling it to the right, you're going to start rolling in the clean signal as well. And it's really great for dialing in all kinds of different tonalities, from tons of compression to really transparent slight compression. And the way these four controls work together is fabulous. As you kind of get it figured out, it's very usable. Now there's two three-way switches on this one. The top switch is the ratio switch. So it's going to be the ratio of compression. If you have it in the light setting, it's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. If you have it in the medium setting, it's going to be a 4-to-1 ratio. And if you have it in what's called the hard setting, that's going to be a 10-to-1 ratio. And those are pretty typical of settings based on what like studio engineers would use in a studio on like a top shelf compressor. Now the one on the bottom, the three-way switch, is your release. So you have a short, medium, and long. The short setting is 75 milliseconds, the medium setting is 125 milliseconds, and then the long setting is, or I guess it would be a slow release, but it's called long on here, would be around 250 milliseconds. And once again, those are pretty typical settings that you'd find on a studio grade compressor. So that's kind of the rundown of all the controls. It's true bypass. Now this guy does run like a lot of the Foundries series. It's 12 to 18 volts dual rail. So if you plug a 12 volt supply into it, it's going to double it to 24 volts. And if you plug an 18 volt supply into it, then it's going to double it to 36. And what it's giving you is just much more headroom. And that's what this thing is great for too. If you want to hit it with like a super active, loud, heavy output bass guitar, it'll handle it perfectly fine, all the way down to an acoustic guitar, and then non-active electric guitars to active electric guitars. It pretty much handles whatever you throw at it. So yeah, without further ado, let's check this guy out. It's the Pettyjohn Crush. Okay, so this is the Pettyjohn Crush we're going to check out. I'm going to use my PRS Dave Grissom model guitar into the Friedman Dirty Shirley. It's dialed very clean. I'm plugged into the low input. So here's just the Friedman. the crush pedal. So it sounds great. I've got it dialed a little bit more extreme. There's even a bit of a volume drop in it. That's mainly because I want you guys to really hear the functionality of the pedal first, as far as what some of those controls do, before I start showing you some of the other great things it's capable of. So right now what we're seeing is in the ratio, we're in the medium ratio. And in the release, it's in the medium release. And you can see that I'm running quite a bit of compression. Now with this pedal, because it's an RMS sensing compressor pedal, it's not going to react like a peak sensing pedal, so you're going to have to get that compression with it, especially an instrument that isn't active, up at least past 12 o'clock or higher. So right now I've got it set a little bit more extreme so you guys can really kind of hear it. I've got the mix all the way to the comp side, so once again you guys can hear what the compressor itself is doing, and then we'll get into the tilt EQ as well. So just real quick as a recap, here's just the guitar and amp. And here's the crush. First of all, this compressor feels great. It really does feel like a super high-end comp, like studio, like audiophile comp. It really reacts that way. It just has that musical, magical quality. So what you're hearing right now is obviously the level is down because I'm squishing pretty hard so you guys can hear it. I can start bringing the level up. Maybe just a little bit less compression. So here's without it. Here's with it. So you can balance it out, and that sounds and feels really great. It makes the amp super clean, so there's basically no transients that would cause it to break up at the front end. Now, what I can do is let you guys kind of just hear the difference in the ratios. Like right now, we're at the kind of the medium setting ratio. I'm going to go ahead and turn the compression up because it's the best way to hear the difference in the ratios. I'll go ahead and move it to the light ratio first and let you hear it. Here's the medium ratio. So you can hear right away that's quite a bit more squish. And then of course the hard ratio is really going to clobber it. Now once again, this is extreme, that's why you're hearing a volume drop. So I have the compression all the way up, but at least you can kind of hear the subtlety between these ratio settings. So I'll go ahead and put it back to medium. Now the release settings, I would say those are more felt than heard depending on what you're playing. Right now it's in the medium setting. We can put it in the short setting and listen to it. And as a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and put this ratio back to hard. So there's the short setting on the release. We'll go to medium. So playing that pattern, you can hear it's not releasing as quick. And then of course the long. And you can hear it, you know, kind of starting to let go. And even as it lets go, it's not that weird kind of pulsing thing. It's really natural and smooth. So that's kind of the rundown on the release and ratio controls. I'm going to go ahead and put them back to medium. Let's just look at real quick the mix, or I'm sorry, we'll look at the tilt EQ. I'm going to back this compression off just a little bit now. So now we'll listen to what the tilt EQ does, and it's very musical. It just as you sweep left, you get less top and more bass, and the opposite when you go to the right. So here's left. And it definitely works well. Obviously, if you want to keep it transparent and really get it close to the amp's tone, you can roll that around. Or you can use it as, you know, something to kind of embellish or create new sounds. Now, the next thing I'll get into is the mix control. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, I think it's always best to start with this thing with the mix control all the way to the left, so you're only hearing the Pettyjohn, to just kind of dial in a sound that you're comfortable with. Now, if that's a little too much compression, maybe instead of dialing back compression, you could start bringing in mix. Now, keep in mind, as you start bringing in the mix, the overall output of the box is going to increase a little bit, so you may need to compensate with the level as well. So to me, that feels really good, kind of where it's set. So that's one way you can kind of dial in a sound from basic amp to comp. Obviously, if you want a less transparent, more kind of squishy comp, then obviously that mix knob would really come into play, and that's going to help a lot. So that kind of covers the basics of kind of how to dial it in. The thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was how I used it in the actual performance demo, more as a session player, more as this being more of a tool and not just an always-on box. Like right now, that's what I have it dialed for, and it's killer. But I found that there were things I could do with it in a session atmosphere that was really cool. And one of the things I did do was use it more as kind of a level boosting pedal with a little bit of comp. So for that strat thing I did at the top, I used the comp to kind of give me a little bit of saturation to the amp by using more mix, more level, and just kind of a backed off tone and compression. So now you can hear just a little bit of hair on the amp. Here's off, which sounds nice, but for me, that was the tone. So not only is it a great, just overall compressor, it just feels killer studio compressor, but also it's just a really great tone shaping tool, because once again, if I wanted that a little bit brighter, instead of reaching for the amp, because this tilt EQ sounds so musical, you just reach for that. Or if it's a little bright and I want it to be more thumpy, I can turn it the other way. So there's that kind of sound. It's really great for that. Now, the other thing I did with it was run an overdrive pedal, and I used a Morning Glory pedal, a JHS pedal, with the gain pretty cranked and the level from it pretty hot, actually into the compressor, which is something I would never do, but it was something the guys from Pettyjohn actually suggested trying, because this pedal, in the way that it's designed, can actually take that much input. You know, if I tried to do that on a peak, sensing pedal, it would just literally squash and there'd be nothing. So what I did with it is I kind of let it compress, which was really cool, but I also, once again, kind of used the tilt EQ to kind of dial the sound a little bit. And what I found is even though I wouldn't normally run the pedal that way, it just felt really good and it still sounded cool. But what I want to do for this purpose is kind of show you more what it would do at the front end of a pedal. So I've got the Pettyjohn chime set up for just kind of a mild distortion. And now I'll just kind of dial in a sound with the crush pedal hitting that. So here's without it, with it. So it depends on how you want to use it. Like, I would probably treat that as kind of my solo sound, like this would be my rhythm. And then I would turn this on for my solo sound. So it works great at the front end. If you want to use it as an always on, it's killer for that. If you want to use it more like I was just demonstrating it, you can certainly use it as that type of a tool. So that's kind of the rundown on this pedal. If you've got any questions, as always, reach out to the guys at Pettyjohn and they'll answer them for you. And in the meantime, I've got some more pedal demos coming up that I'm excited about. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, you guys.